Home sales across Canada are up 200, 300, 400%. Even CMHC is now saying that we're going to see continued home price increases. And yet, are we maybe starting to see things slow down just a little bit in the Canadian housing market? What the heck is going on right now? That's what we're going to find out on this, your May 2021 Canadian Real Estate Market Update. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Prairie Real Estate, where I educate you all about Canadian real estate. If you're new here, my name is Matthew Fife. I'm a real estate agent from Regina, Saskatchewan, and this is my monthly Canadian housing market update, where we cover 11 major markets across Canada. We're going to talk about new sales, new listings, inventory levels, months of inventory, and of course, most importantly, prices. If you want the quick one sentence, what's going on in the Canadian housing market? BC, Ontario, and Quebec all saw some slowdowns in the number of sales, while the Prairies and Atlantic Canada saw continued increases, but prices across Canada continue to increase. Now, if you want to skip the rest of this introduction and go directly to your market, right here, it's going to be in the YouTube timeline there. Everything is sectioned off, as well as in the description, all the different chapters, so you can just jump directly to that. Like I said last month, there is really no point in looking at the numbers this year versus the numbers last year, because you are going to see 300% and 400% differences. We all know why that happened. Basically, everything hit pause last year, so really it doesn't make any sense to look at those, although I'm still going to have them just for simplicity and continuity. But look at those 5-year averages. They make a lot more sense because they show more normal levels. Yes, Canadian real estate is hot right now. It's not 300% and 400% hotter than normal. Now, we are seeing some slowdowns, like I said, in BC, Ontario, and Quebec. Is that a sign of things to come? I've always said it. 1 month doesn't make a trend, so we are going to watch that. Although I'm going to talk a little bit more in detail as to what I think is going on there at the end of the video, so stick around for that. But as always, we're going to start this off with another terrible joke, and it's one from the comment section. Those are always my favorite. What do you call a cow in the middle of an earthquake? A milkshake. If you have a terrible joke that I can use in a future episode, put it in the comments below. It was another record-setting month in the city of Regina. New all-time home sales record for a single month. 392 homes were sold last month. And in fact, 4 of the 5 busiest months ever in the history of Regina happened in just the last year. That sales was up 170% over last year. It's up 51% over the 5-year average as well. New listings coming to market. There were 655 new listings coming on the market. That's up 130% from last year. It is also up 32% versus the 5-year average. This is actually down just slightly from the month before, and we do usually see May being the month where we see the most listings come on the market. So we'll have to check back next month and see if that continues to hold true. To start the month, there was 1,050 listings on the market. That's still down 6% from last year. It's also down 30% from the 5-year average. We should expect to see around 1,350 to 1,400 listings on the market this time of year. Months of inventory is 2.7. That is actually slightly better than last month's 2.5. It's still squarely in the seller's market territory. Now, the composite benchmark price is $261,000, and you keen-eyed viewers are going to say, that's lower by a lot than last month. Yes, the dollar figure is gone down. That's because there was a new methodology used for calculating benchmark prices when they combined Regina, Saskatoon, and all the other small centers into one benchmark. They finally have corrected all that. So the price is still up 8.5% versus last year, but that numeric dollar value it's put on is lower. No house prices did not drop $20,000 in the month. It's just a change in that calculation. That is still up above the 5-year trend as well. This is the first time we've seen prices this high since 2018. So we've made up a bunch of the losses we had over the last few years. What does this mean for somebody who's thinking about buying a house this year in Regina? I do anticipate that this pace of sales, as well as the pace of price increases, will taper in the back half of the year. That's typical. We see a little bit of a cooling in the market in the back half of the year, but I don't anticipate to see a major correction down for prices in the city of Regina and I anticipate it still to be very competitive throughout the rest of the year. So if you're thinking about buying a house this year in Regina, I would be getting moving. That's where the Bald Prairie Real Estate Biometer ranks Regina. The Victoria real estate market saw over 1,100 houses sold in the month. That is up 290% over last year. It's up 34% over the 5-year average, which is about 780 houses sold in the month. There's just over 1,500 new listings put up for sale in the month. That's up 131% versus last year, and it's up 20% versus their 5-year average, which is about 1,200 houses put up for sale in the month. Active listings, about 1,500 active listings. That's down 43% from last year. It's also down 51% versus the 5-year average. Months of inventory in Victoria, 1.3, still very squarely in a seller's market, although it is a slight improvement from the 1.1 months of inventory they had last month. The composite benchmark price for the city of Victoria was just under $775,000. That is up 8% from last year. Looking at the price trend here, you can see typically this is when we would expect to see prices start to flatten a little bit. But if you look at the yearly price trend here, you can see how much prices have accelerated over the last couple of years. I do anticipate that this price appreciation and the pace of sales is going to slow down through the back half of this year, but I don't anticipate prices to drop anytime soon or within this next year or so here. And that's why I've got the Bald Prairie Real Estate Biometer saying you should get moving if you're thinking about buying a house this year in Victoria. It's very typical in the Vancouver real estate market in the month of April to see a little bit of a lull in activity. So we saw exactly that this past month, and now you're starting to see the headlines. Vancouver real estate market has peaked out. This is as high as it's going to get. Let's just wait and see. 1 month doesn't make a trend, and often May is the busiest month of the year in Vancouver. So let's wait and see what happens there if that ends up being true. But they did have a big month for sales still. 4,900 homes were sold in the month. That is up 342% versus last year. It's also 56% above the 5-year average, which is about 2,700 houses sold in the month. There's just shy of 8,000 new listings put on the market. That's up 243% versus last year. It's up 46% versus the 5-year average, which is about 5,000 new listings coming on market in the month. There's just over 10,200 active listings to start the month. That's up 3% from last year and down 1% from the 5-year average. So they're right in line of where we should expect to see inventory in the city of Vancouver. That puts their months of inventory at about 2.1 right now. That is up from the 1.2 months of inventory they had last month. That was driven mainly by a very active month for sales, which drove down their months of inventory. The benchmark price in Vancouver, this is the composite combined benchmark price, all property types together, $1.15 million. That is up 12% from last year, and it is also up 2.5% from last month. Talking with agents there, the word I kept hearing was demand. Even though they did see a large jump in supply in terms of new houses coming on market, demand basically met that. Last month's sales were 40% above the 10-year average as well. I am anticipating that this pace of sales and price increases will taper in the back half of the year. I'm also anticipating a shift in demand away from single family and back towards condos, especially in downtown Vancouver, townhouses, that type of thing. So if you are thinking about buying a house this year in Vancouver, I don't anticipate prices to decline, just the pace of price increases to slow. So if you're thinking about buying a house this year in Vancouver, I would be getting moving. Calgary continues to put together back-to-back months of strong sales, and this month was no different. 3,200 homes were sold in the month. That is up 460% versus last year. Of course, last year was quite a bit of a pause, but it's still up 70% versus the 5-year average in Calgary, which is about 1,200 houses sold in the month. There's about 4,600 new listings put up for sale in the month. That's up 227% from last month. It's also up 50% versus the 5-year average of about 2,700 houses for sale, put up for sale in the month. There's about 6,000 active listings right now. That is down 4.5% from last year. Up from last year. It is also down 18% versus the 5-year average, which is about 7,200 houses for sale this time of the year. That puts their months of inventory at 1.9. It is still unchanged from last month and still a seller's market in Calgary. Their benchmark price, $451,000. That is up 11% from last year. It is also up about 2% from last month. You can see here, looking at the monthly price trend, that prices are not following anything what they would typically do this time of year. They continue to head straight up. Looking at the yearly price trend, you can see how much prices have increased in Calgary in the last year. They're now seeing prices closer to where they were in 2016. Now, I do expect, much like the rest of Canada, that this pace of sales and pace of price increases will taper in the back half of the year, but the overall price trend is going to continue up in Calgary. So that's why the Prairie Real Estate Biometer says if you're thinking about buying a house in Calgary this year, I would be getting moving. Edmonton and Calgary are kind of having similar months. Both of them had big months for sales. 2,800 houses were sold in Edmonton for the month. That's up 282% versus last year. It's up 65% versus the 5-year average, which is just shy of 1,500 homes sold in the month. There were 4,400 new listings put on the market in the month. That's up 135% versus last year. It's also up 34% versus the 5-year average, which is about 3,100 houses put up for sale in the month. Active listings in Edmonton, just over 7,000 to start the month. That is down 9% from last year and down 26% from their 5-year average, which is about 9,100 houses for sale in the month. Their months of inventory is 2.5. They're still in a seller's market in Edmonton. It is down from last month's balance market. They were just barely in that balance market category last month. The composite benchmark price in Edmonton is about $338,000, which is up 7.5% from last year and 2% from the month before. Looking at this monthly price trend, you can see that this is kind of what we would expect to see. Prices increasing through to the summer where they start to flatten off a little bit, but prices so far shooting through the roof. Looking at the yearly price trend, you can see, just like in Calgary, they're making up a lot of losses they've had over the last few years, and we're seeing prices closer to where they were in 2017 in the city of Edmonton. And like I expected in Calgary, and like I expect for the rest of Canada, I do anticipate that this price appreciation pace and the pace of sales we're seeing right now will start to taper off in the back half of this year. We're also going to see a shift in demand, maybe away from single family towards condo, apartment, townhouse style products. But I don't anticipate the price trend to be going anything but upwards for this year. So the Prairie Real Estate Biometer says if you are thinking about buying a house this year in Edmonton, you should get moving. After Saskatoon's record-setting month that they had last month, this month they saw a little bit of a slowdown. We're going to have to see if this is a start to a trend or just a bump along the road. They had 550 sales. That is up 159% from last year. It is also up 59% versus the 5-year average, where they typically see about 325 sales in the month. They had 958 new listings. That's up 96% from last year, and it is up 33% versus a 5-year average, where they typically see about 687 houses listed. They had 1,371 active listings to start the month. That's down 9% from last year and down 32% from their 5-year average, where they typically have about 1,900 houses in the market this time of year. Their months of inventory stayed the same at 2.5 months of inventory. That's still a seller's market in Saskatoon. The benchmark price was up 12%, now at $321,000. That is also up 3% from last month. Looking here at the monthly price trend, you can see that prices continue to accelerate in Saskatoon. Typically, we see them accelerate through the spring with a little bit of flattening and sometimes even a little bit of tail off through the winter. And the yearly price trend here, you can see how much ground Saskatoon has made up. They're now seeing prices similar to where they were in 2016. I do anticipate, much like the rest of Canada, that the pace of sales and price increases will slow down as the year progresses, and we're going to see a shift away from single family a little bit to back to some condos and townhouses. Probably going to see a bit stronger back half of the year, but I think the overall trajectory for prices in Saskatoon continues to be upward. So that's why the Prairie Real Estate Biometer says if you are thinking about buying a house this year in Saskatoon, I would be getting moving. In the Winnipeg real estate market, they had a very big month. First time ever they've had more than 2,000 homes sold in a single month. 2,055 for the month. That's up 141% versus last year. There were 2,300 new listings put on the market. That is up 49% from last year. They've got 2,600 active listings. That's down 41% from last year. Months of inventory is at 1.3, same as last month, and it continues to be a seller's market in Winnipeg. Their benchmark price is about $315,000. That is up about 10% from last year. The continued shortage of inventory drives up prices across all price categories. Houses are just not staying on the market very long in Winnipeg. I think it's something like less than 2 weeks for most houses on the market. This inventory shortage is going to continue to drive up prices, and that's why I have the Prairie real estate biometer for the city of Winnipeg saying if you're thinking about buying a house this year in Winnipeg, I would get moving. So what's going on in the Toronto real estate market? Are they seeing a little bit of a peak in the market, or is this just a temporary lull? They had 13,600 homes sold in a month. That's up 360% from last year. It is up 47% from the 5-year average, which is about 8,600 houses sold in the month. Almost 21,000 new listings came on the market. That is up 237% from last year. It's up 30% over the 5-year average, which is about 15,000 new listings in the month. Active listings to start the month, 11,600, which is up 2% from last year. It's down 36% from the 5-year average, which is about 16,700 listings on the market this time of the year. That puts their months of inventory at 1.2, down just slightly from 1.4. Toronto is still very much in a seller's market right now. The composite benchmark price for the entire GTA is up 17.6% from last year at $1.022 million. Now, this is when we typically start to see prices see a little bit of a peak, flatten off through summer, and then increase through the winter. We're seeing prices continue to skyrocket in Toronto. Not really following that typical monthly trend. Looking here at the yearly price trend, you can see how much prices have continued to increase and accelerate in Toronto. Like I said, sales were lower this past month, and I'm hearing buyer activity in terms of how many buyers are looking to buy an individual house. Instead of seeing 30 offers on a house, it's more like 8 or 10 offers. So is this a slowdown in the market, or is this maybe due to more restrictive health measures? I think we're going to have to wait and see, play this one a little bit. We would expect to see maybe a pickup here over the next couple of months, or if this is an overall cool down, we'll see this trend continue here. 1 month doesn't make a trend. So let's keep an eye on this. I do expect, though, that the pace of sales and the pace of price increases in the city of Toronto are going to slow down through the back half of the year. We're kind of going back to more normal, although still elevated levels, both activity and price increases. I think you're going to see a shift away from the smaller suburban areas and the larger single family homes back to downtown Toronto, to the apartment style condos. I'd expect that to see an increase in both prices and sales there. So if you're expecting the prices are going to come down in Toronto, I don't think so. I think you're seeing the overall trend continue to increase in Toronto. And that's why I have the Prairie real estate biometer sitting at Get Moving if you're thinking about buying a house this year in Toronto. In the Ottawa real estate market, it continues to be hot, as it seems to always be this last little while. 2,400 homes were sold in the month. That is up 163% from last year. It is also up 34% over the 5-year average, which is about 1,700 houses sold in the month. 3,200 new listings came on the market though. It's up 168% from last year. It's up 34% over the 5-year average, which is about 2,300 new listings put on the market. So a little bit of reprieve there in Ottawa. 1,500, almost 1,600 active listings to start the month. They just broke the 1,000 barrier last month. Now they've broken the 1,500 homes for sale barrier. So some good news, trending a little bit towards more of a bounce market. They still have a long ways to go though. That is still down 18% from last year. It is down 107% over the 5-year average though, which is over 5,000 active listings. So their months of inventory, 0.6, up from 0.5 last month. They have a long ways to go to get back to a balanced market in Ottawa. That's only 2 weeks worth of inventory. Of course, it's pushed up that composite benchmark price like crazy. It's over $640,000 in Ottawa now. That's up 32% from last year. Looking at both the yearly and the monthly price trends here, you can see that Ottawa just continues to see rapid price acceleration. And although I do anticipate at some point in this year, you're going to see that start to taper off a little bit, both in terms of price acceleration and the pace of sales, Ottawa is so far away from a balanced market that it's going to take years, not just months of inventory piling up before they even get back to a balanced market, let alone a buyer's market in Ottawa. So while I do see things starting to slow down a little bit, the overall trend continues to be price increases in Ottawa. So if you're thinking about buying a house this year in Ottawa, my Prairie real estate biometer says you should get moving. Here's your Montreal real estate market update in one single sentence. Sales are up, new listings are up, inventory is down, and prices continue to rise. They had over 6,200 sales in the month. That is up 230% from last year. It's also up 32% over their 5-year average, which is about 5,400 homes sold in the month. They had almost 7,200 new listings put on the market. That is up 333% from last year. It is also up 25% over their 5-year average, which is just shy of 5,600 new listings put up for sale in the month. Their active listings of 11,500. That's down 15% from last year. It's down 68% from the 5-year average. That's basically stayed the same all year long. About 11,500 active listings in Montreal. Their 5-year average is over 23,000 active listings this time of year. So their months of inventory is 1.8, squarely in a seller's market, and down just a little bit from last month of 1.9. Their composite benchmark price in Montreal, $490,000. That is up 28% from last year. Talking with agents there, they talked about single family homes. You can't find anything in Montreal under $500,000 for a single family home. And if there is one priced at that, it's going to be gone overnight, and it's for sure going to sell over asking with a whole bunch of offers on it. They're seeing prices increase at double digits just since the start of this year in Montreal. And with their low inventory levels and strong demand, the overall price trend is going to continue to be up, even though I do expect that we are going to see a tapering of both sales and price increases. The overall trend is going to continue to be up. So that's why if you're thinking about buying a house this year in Montreal, the Prairie real estate biometer says you should get moving. The Halifax real estate market continues to be absolutely on fire. Their inventory levels are absolutely depleted right now. Let's talk sales first. Though 11,000 homes were sold. That's up 127% from last year. They also had 11,000 new listings come on the market. That's up 168% from last year. Their active listings though is 368. That is down 73% from last year, puts their months of inventory at 0.3. That is 1 week's worth of inventory, 10 days if you want to get really particular. So they just have no inventory in Halifax right now. Agents there are running around just trying to get new listings up, but prices continue to increase. $418,000 now. That is up 22% from last year. Halifax has the tightest inventory situation across Canada for all the major markets, and it continues to be competitive. I don't see this trend going anywhere but a continuation up, although I think the pace is going to eventually slow down, both in sales and price increases. But if you're thinking about buying a house this year in Halifax, the Prairie real estate biometer says you should get moving. So now you've seen the numbers. What the heck do all these numbers actually mean? And what's going on in BC, Ontario, and Quebec? Well, we're seeing a little bit of a slowdown. Is this the peak? I don't know yet. 1 month doesn't make a trend. Let's see what happens in the next month or two to see if this is the start of something or a blip on the road. I do believe there's a couple of things that are going on. One, it is just typical. Sometimes we do see a little bit of a slowdown at this time of the year in some of those markets. As well, we've got much more restrictive health measures that were put in place over the last 30 days in a lot of those markets, which is going to have an impact on it. Let's see what happens as those start to reopen again, measures are reduced, see if we see an uptick in markets. As well, we are seeing a shift in buyer preferences slowly here. Everybody went to single family homes last year. Those went through the roof. And then the gap from the condo prices to single family prices continued to increase. Single family homes are less affordable now. Townhouses and condos are more affordable, thus more appealing. I think you're going to see those, both condos and townhouses, be the story of the Canadian real estate market for the back half of 2021. And we're seeing the investors come back, buying those up for the purposes of rentals, because I think they're seeing what I talked about for quite a while, the return of immigration, tourism, and international students, which of course a big driver for the rental market in places like Vancouver, Victoria, Toronto. And then you've got people that are feeling more comfortable returning to the city centers, remembering what they loved about having everything within walking distance and the downtown vibe. That is starting to come back, and that's where you're going to see, I think, a shift in demand from the suburbs to the cities again. So if you live in some of those suburb areas, I think you will see a little bit of a reprieve in terms of the pace of sales is going to slow down. I don't anticipate we're going to see prices come down, but just the craziness is going to start to level off a little bit as demand shifts more back to the city. So that's why I think what we're seeing is a little bit of slowdown in those things, but I think you're also going to see that shift going from single family back to that condo townhouse market. Condos, townhouses, probably going to be a big thing to watch for the next couple of months here. That got you up to speed on the Canadian real estate market, but you probably got more questions still. Well, especially if you're a first-time home buyer, I got something for you right here. That's my first-time home buyer playlist. Gonna answer every single first-time home buyer question you could possibly have. And the YouTube algorithm says you need to watch this video next to become more educated about the Canadian housing market. As always, guys, thanks very much for watching.